Okay, welcome back to open session. And I'll ask Deputy City Clerk to read the motion. Opposed?
The motion from the closed session is that the CAO proceed as directed regarding the in-camera discussion. The mover was Councillor Longo and the seconder was Councillor Wilson.
All those in favor? Opposed? That is carried. Okay. Our last consent report, and it was pulled, is PDS 2022-02 Residential Rental Licensing Financial Summary. At a mover, Councillor Decker, seconder, Councillor Wilson, and I'll call on our manager, our chief building official. Jason's going to give this report. Am I correct? Okay, I'll call on our chief building official, Jason Simpson. And Jason, this is the Planning and Development Services Report, PDS 2022-02, be received for information purposes. And is there anything else you want to add before I open the floor for questions? Because Councillor Longo pulled this report.
There's nothing else I have to add, Mr. Mayor. Thank you.
Okay, Councillor Longo, you're up.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Through you to the chief building official. Just a couple of quick questions. I don't want to spend too much time. There's a lot of data and numbers here. Just wondering if you can tell me how many properties are currently under license?
Under license, so through the mayor to Councillor Longo, I don't have the exact number, but approximately we are at roughly 1,005 properties, I believe.
Okay, good. So yeah, when this was brought forward in 2017, 1,000 was our goal. We certainly hope to get there quicker than it's taken us, but I think now that we're at our goal, we can move forward. Just a couple of questions on revenue. Revenue for 2021 for the program looks to be 178,000. There's also revenue from administrative penalties. This one was kind of, I didn't expect to see this, and I don't know how much you can expand on it. We have to keep things confidential, obviously, but in 2020, there was revenue of $100,000 in penalties. Can you tell me how many different penalties there were?
Through the mayor to Councillor Longo, I don't have that data before me, but I could certainly look into that and bring back a subsequent report if you wish.
Okay, but and again, just a guess on it. Did one person get a $100,000 fine, or were there 100 people that got fined $1,000? I'm just curious if you have any rough idea.
So for $100,000, that means that there were 200 administrative penalties issued. I know that there were some individuals who received multiple penalties. So I wouldn't be able to identify the breakdown specifically at this time, but $100,000 works out to 200 administrative penalties.
Wow. Okay, that's quite a bit. I hate to see anybody fined. I'd rather see compliance, but it's good to see that we're taking it seriously, because we do have a lot of people who have talked to me. They own rental properties. They're not opposed to it. They just want to see fairness in the system. So I think your report showing that, where if people aren't complying, then they're paying a penalty, which is unfortunate. It'd be cheaper just to apply, I think. I just want to make a comment. When this was passed in 2017, myself, the mayor, Councillor Neal, Councillor Hanley were on council. My recollection at the time was we were going to have 2 full-time officers working on this program, and the rough calculations it would be $100,000 an officer. So costs of roughly $200,000 with revenue of $200,000. This isn't meant to make money. So can you just give me your thoughts on how many officers you use, and if I'm recalling things properly?
Certainly. Through the mayor to Councillor Longo, I wasn't around at the initiation of this program. However, I do believe, based on what I've been told, that there were 2 officers hired to assist with the administration of this program. Over the years, we have played around with those numbers, trying to make this as efficient as possible, given that we were losing a lot of revenue at the beginning. We do use approximately 1.5 officers to administer this program. And a lot of time is spent doing administrative work as well. So, which limits our ability to do a lot of the enforcement because there's so much administrative work associated with it as well.
Okay. But hopefully, once we get up to a sustainable level of rental licenses, we could potentially have, with just renewals, less administrative work?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, unfortunately, the renewals are just as much work as the new licenses, other than having to track them down and the enforcement side of it. But the actual administration of the license is the same amount of work as a new license.
Okay. So I guess my final question is, so this program, although it's had its growing pains, seems to be doing what we're doing in terms of just revenues. I'm not talking about administrative penalties, but revenues are basically equal to our cost to run the program?
Currently, that is correct.
Okay. I appreciate the report, and I'm glad to see that more and more licenses are being issued, and more and more people seem to be complying. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Longo. Councillor DeRose.
Through you, Mr. Mayor. Thank you, Jason. Jason, just a quick question. I think I've mentioned this before. So non-compliance is a $500 penalty?
Through the mayor to Councillor DeRose, that is correct. $500 for non-compliance.
Okay. Just from my conversing with individuals, mostly in the new parts of Thorold, specifically Rolling Meadows, and I'm actually compiling a list. There are many houses there that are not registered, and they are rentals. And absentee, out-of-town landlords, whatever you want to call them, that are going to contribute nothing to our community. And I just wonder, how would I go about? Would it be trying to pass a motion at one of the next meetings? And I see Terry there, Fire Chief Terry, thank you. And that's one of my biggest concerns is just the safety of these people. Because some of them are overcrowded. But my point is, how would we go about, I don't think $500 is a significant penalty for them to comply. And I honestly, I think it should be much higher. If you can direct me, or Manoj or one of you direct me on how I can put a motion forward going forward, maybe a statement next meeting, but I think this needs to be increased. It's just like speeding penalties. If they're not high enough, if they're not deterrent enough, drinking and driving, same thing. There has to be a deterrent. And $500 to me, they're laughing at us. That's my opinion. Jason, any feedback would be appreciated. Thank you.
Through the mayor, I guess it depends on the situation. $500 certainly isn't a significant amount of money when you're collecting rent, and these are businesses that are operating. We do have some individuals who do come into compliance as soon as they receive a penalty. But I do know that we have multiple who have been issued multiple penalties as well and have not come into compliance. We are currently chasing down over 200 additional properties that we're aware of that are unlicensed, and those are just the ones we're aware of at this time. If council chooses to consider an increased penalty, then I believe the proper procedure would be a notice of motion to bring that up before council in the future.
Yeah, because I tell you, I am compiling my own list, and I will be providing to you shortly. And it's appalling at what these people are trying to get away with. Thank you, Jason.
Thank you, Councillor DeRose. Councillor Sentence. Councillor Sentence, go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Through you to Jason. I just kind of going off a little topic here, but so I saw the difference between renewals applications and renewal approvals, and there seem to be short of the approvals. And in there, it says somewhere in there that you can reject someone for an approval. Do we have something in there? I know I've talked to you about this before. Can we reject some problem properties and just say, when they come for an approval, and say, you know what, it's just been too much, Juneberry, Winterberry, and reject them as an approval? Or are we obligated to approve them and we can't use that against them, bad behavior?
Through the mayor to Councillor Sentence, the bylaw does lay out provisions for revoking a license if there are too many violations once a license has been issued. The bylaw provides the Director of Planning and Development Services with the authority to do so. To straight out reject an application,
A
it's
renewal,
not- Pardon me?
a renewal application, sorry.
Oh, sorry. Yeah, we could certainly, well, the director has the authority to choose not to renew a license if there is due cause.
Okay,
And then there would be an appeal process after that, that an individual could follow through.
right. Have we ever done that yet, or Jason, or?
No, we have not rejected any licenses at this time.
Okay, I just think we got to consider that, especially in that area in the future, to send a message and say, thank you for your time, but you've been a nightmare. So anyways, thank you.
Thank you. Any further questions? Seeing none. We had a mover, Counselor Decker, and a seconder, Counselor Wilson. All those in favor? Opposed? That is carried. Now, we have to go back to 15C CC 2022-02 Council Correspondence for January 18th. That a mover, Counselor Wilson, and a seconder, mover, Counselor Decker, seconder, Counselor Wilson, to receive all that correspondence. All those in favor? Opposed? That is carried. Okay, so now we're into discussion reports. 16A, PWCS 2022-02, write-off skatable, and I'll got a mover, Counselor DeRose, and a seconder, Counselor Kenny, and I'll turn this over to our Director of Public Works and Community Services, Jeff Holman.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. The recommendation is that the outstanding balance in the amount of $1,616.04 be deemed uncollectible and funded through the general 2021 overrun.
Thank you. Is there any questions for Jeff? Go ahead, Counselor DeRose.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, I do like what you commented on, Jeff, in the report, or Curtis did, or both of you, that maybe going forward, it's to collect money up front in these situations. That would be great, but I agree, there's nothing, can't get blood from a rock, and these guys have obviously gone out of business, but going forward, I like that idea of yours to maybe try to collect prior to this happening. Thank you.
Thank you, Counselor DeRose. Anyone else? Seeing none, all those in favor? Opposed? That is carried. 16B, CC 2022-01, statutory public meetings. I have a mover, Counselor Longo, and a seconder, Counselor Sentence, and I'll turn it over to our City Clerk, Joanne Hyde.
Sure. Through the mayor to members of council, this report is that council approved the change in schedule for statutory public meetings and that council approved the necessary amendments to the procedure bylaw.
Is there any questions for City Clerk? Go ahead, Counselor Hanlon.
Is there any specific reason why we need to start at 5:30? You know, I know that we don't need a quorum for council, but it is a time for council members to get information in regards to public meetings. And I basically miss every one because I get home at 20 after 6, to tell you the truth. That's why, you know, I've always known that my meetings started at 6:30, and I coordinate my life towards such and my work schedule.
Sure.
So I just, you know, me, I'm not in support of it myself. I like the continuance at 6:30. you know, we knew when we took the job what it entailed of, and some nights are longer than others, and that's what I'm here for.
Anyway,
So I'd like to continue at 6:30 myself. I'm not for the recommendation.
thank you, Councillor. Do you want to comment on that?
Sure, through the mayor to members of council. This was discussed at a meeting, I believe, in December, and I believe Councillor Wilson was going to bring it up with regards to trying to manage better the council agendas. So staff went back, we spoke with the director of planning and the managers of planning, and we discussed that it would be an opportunity for council to look at removing public meetings from the council portion of the agenda. The way that the current procedure bylaw is written is that if there is a public meeting, we are not able to have delegations or presentations. So the last time that we had a meeting with regards to a public meeting and delegations and presentations, the meeting, I believe, went to past 11 o'clock. So it was just a concern. And what we have come up with the planning department was to request council looking at the public meetings to begin at 5:30 prior to a council meeting. Alternatively, if that doesn't work, we could potentially look at having public meetings on another date outside of the council date on Tuesdays.
Okay.
If I could, Mr. Mayor, yeah, I respect that. Thank you for that answer. It's just that, you know, is that regardless if you have the public meeting at 5:30 or not, you know, we still have to sit in on them. And the consideration should be to councillors who are the ultimate decision makers. I'm not taking anything from staff. They do a great job. But when it comes down to public meetings, I think all should have an ample opportunity to listen in on them, to be informed. That's when you get your best information. That's when you can write down what questions you may want to ask. And I can say I've been on this council for 18 years on and off, 18 years as a sitting councilor, and I have seen seldom where a meeting went past 11 o'clock. A couple of times maybe. And I think, you know, even here we might have to go past 10 o'clock night, maybe not. But I'm not for it.
Thank you.
I'm just saying that. I just don't agree with it. I think everybody should have an opportunity to be a part of any type of council proceedings as our schedule is.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor Wilson.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Through you, I don't agree with starting the public meetings at 5:30. I think we obviously have a councillor that doesn't work for here, and in the future after the next election, most people work till, I shouldn't say most, but you know, the typical 9 to 5 gives them time to get home, get changed, whatever the case is. I don't think 5:30 is reasonable. And I don't necessarily want to see it on another night. The purpose of my comment on that meeting was that there was a public meeting which was very controversial, so we knew that it would be lengthy. And then there was multiple delegations from staff going over huge projects like the fire hall and the operations center. My comment was just that staff used wisdom, and I don't mean that in an offensive way, I apologize if it comes out that way, but to think about, like, was it necessary to hear from the fire hall and to hear about the operations center and to have a massive public meeting all in one meeting? No, those weren't like hot items. So one or both, the fire hall and the operation, could go the next night. So my comment was that I don't think it's necessary to have all of that piled in, and it's information overload. And then I feel like we worry that maybe we're making things slip through the cracks, right? So I don't know if you need to change, like I see on this, that you're allowed to have 3 presenters at a meeting, but it was that in the combination with all the reports from staff, which weren't timely matter. So I don't think the answer is make the public meeting earlier so that we stay till 10 o'clock without asking to go longer. I think the point is to make sure that there's some judgment when you're setting these up, so that it's not so many topics and information overload all in one night.
Thank you. Anyone else? Go ahead, Councillor Neal.
Yeah, I agree. Councillor Hanley is, at times we have gone to the 11 o'clock, and even before Councillor Hanley was on council, we had a couple of meetings that went to 12, 12:30, depending on how much was on the agenda. and it just so happened the last meeting, as Counselor Wilson mentioned, that we had a whole bunch of different types of reports beside a long public meeting, and we will have that again. But I agree that I don't work for a living now, but when I did, it was hard to get to council even at 6:30 at the time. So I think we should leave it as 6:30 and continue on in the same respect.
Okay, anyone else? So what you know is if you think it should stay 6:30, you vote against this motion, and it stays the same. Am I correct, to our clerk? Okay? So you've heard the motion. I had a mover, Counselor Longo, seconder, Counselor Sentence. All those in favor? You understand that it...
Okay, no, go ahead. I know. I was like we were voting on
If you
Go
vote in
ahead.
favor, you're voting for the change. You vote against it, you're voting to stay with the current times, okay?
Yes.
I just want to make sure everyone's clear so they know what they're voting on. Okay, all those in favor? Opposed? That motion is defeated, so we stay with the current way we do business, okay? Okay, that takes care of discussion reports. Notices of motion. Okay, bylaws. First reading of bylaws. I have a mover, Counselor Longo, and a seconder, Counselor Kenny. I just want to make sure I've got this right. That leave be given to introduce the following bylaws. Bylaw 02-2022, Bylaw 03-2022, Bylaw 07-2022, Bylaw 08-2022, and that the same now be read a first time. All those in favor? Opposed? That's carried. Final reading of the bylaws. Moved by,
Counselor Kenny's not here, so
I had mover Counselor Longo, and the first one, it should be, I need a seconder for that first one. We'll vote again because I'm sorry I didn't, and I got Counselor Wilson. Okay. That leave be given to introduce the following bylaws, and again, that was 02-2022, 03-2022, 07-2022, 08-2022, and that now the same be read a first time. All those in favor? Opposed? That's carried. Final reading of the bylaws. I'm going to use the same two. I'm going to use Counselor Longo as a mover and Counselor Wilson as the seconder, that the bylaws just read a first time be read a second and third time and do pass, and that the mayor and clerk do sign and seal the same. Any rule of this council to the contrary notwithstanding. All those in favor? Opposed? That's carried. And it's 9:55. Before we go into the closed session, because we'll probably be longer than 10 o'clock, I need a motion to go past 10 o'clock. I have a mover, Counselor Decker, and a seconder, Counselor Hanley. All those in favor? Opposed? That is carried. Okay. We're going to move now. I need a mover to go into closed session. I need a mover and a seconder. I have Counselor Longo and a seconder, Counselor Wilson. That council move into closed session at 9:56 to discuss matters about identifiable individuals, COVID-19 vaccination updates, and committee appointments. All those in favor? Opposed? That's carried. Please log out and log in again.